Hello, welcome to part 5 of how to write engaging scenes. And this is action-reaction, or as Dwight calls it, MRUs. On that website I shared previously on part 4. This is an example he shows. And so this is how to kind of micromanage your scene. And if you keep this concept in mind, it'll really make your writing more engaging. And it'll also always remind you to share characters' emotions, feelings. So what you have first is you have like what he calls the motivation. So the motivation to make you react. It's the motivating thing. This is really what someone else does is really what motivates you. But anything can motivate. Your own thought can motivate you. But we want this back and forth, this action-reaction. Again, you can think of it as inhale-exhale. This is like your mini inhale-exhale. So we looked at scene. There's an inhale scene and an exhale scene. The exhale scene is the one that has the most thoughts, the most thinking. The character's doing a lot of introspection. They're dealing with their feelings and emotions and everything, and they're doing a lot of thinking and then planning and so forth. So you can have the same kind of concept back and forth within a scene. So you start out with the motivating. What's going to motivate the character to do something? So the example he gives is a bolt of raw adrenaline. Actually, this is the reaction. Sorry. The original stimulus was a tiger jumps out at him. So when the tiger jumps out at him, or it's coming towards him, a bolt of raw adrenaline shot through Jack's veins. He jerked his rifle to his shoulder, sighted on the tiger's heart, and squeezed the trigger. Die, you bastard. Also, he says it's important to realize the order in which you put things. So you want to think about the logical order in which things occur. In this case, the adrenaline jumps through his veins first. That's going to happen before he jerks the rifle to his shoulder. So you don't want to write then that he jerks the rifle to his shoulder and then after that tell us about the adrenaline rush. You want to make sure that you tell us things as they happen in logical order. And so obviously he would have the adrenaline rush first. After the adrenaline rush, then he would jerk the rifle to his shoulder. Then he would sight it on the tiger's heart. Then he would squeeze the trigger. Now that's this comes naturally to people, obviously, because obviously you have to put the rifle to your shoulder. You wouldn't write that he sights the tiger's heart and then puts it to his shoulder. That doesn't make sense. And you wouldn't write that he squeezed the trigger before he pulls the rifle to his shoulder, unless he did that for some reason on accident. So it's easy for writers to do this part, the action parts. But sometimes they might forget and accidentally write this afterwards. They might write he does all the action, and then they write adrenaline rushes through him. Unless the adrenaline for some reason didn't rush through him until then, so you want to think of it in the logical order. Obviously, a tiger's coming at him, adrenaline pumps. So that's why the adrenaline pumping is mentioned first, then his actions, or in order to deal with the threat, that is the tiger coming at him. And then you can even have his verbal, he's verbalizing how he feels about it. Then you have the reaction, like what happens then? What's the reaction? So he pulled the trigger, so you had his action. So first you had his reaction to the tiger's action, right? That's the adrenaline. Oops, where did that go? I have all this stuff here. Okay, I guess I repeated that. Anyway, so right, so first you have the tiger jumping at him. That was an action. Then you have his reaction, which is the adrenaline pumping. That's his immediate reaction to the tiger coming at him. And then now he's taking action now. So now he is taking action against the tiger's action to stop it. And he pulls the gun, pulls the trigger. Then the bullet grazes the left shoulder. So this is the result of what happens. Blood spurts out of the jagged wound. The tiger roars, the tiger roared and staggered. Then leaped into the air straight at Jack's throat. So this is now. So now you have the result of Jack's action. Then you have the tiger or the lion's, it was a tiger. Sorry, the tiger's reaction again. So you have this action reaction. Inhale, exhale. Leaps straight for Jack's throat. So what's important then? To understand, I can go ahead and actually close this out. Don't need it anymore. All right, so I'm just going to show some examples here from the last. This is a rough draft, so I still have a long ways to go before this is publishable. But nonetheless, I can show the example here So basically what's happened so far is they're trying to get these golden apples for the bat folk that are filled with the tree's blood. Anyway, it all makes sense in context. And they're climbing up the tree now, and they got the apples, and now they're trying to get the apples. And the nymphs have a relationship with the trees, and they want the apples. And the nymphs are kind of like they're tree nymphs, and they use branches and stuff to form their bodies. Okay, so you have Cloud here, which is an elf, and Skyla is also an elf. Skyla is the girl. So here you have Cloud swung through branches, pulled his sword, and sliced off branches close by Skyla. She did that because the wind's kicking up and branches are scraping her. Is that better? So all this here is like, Cloud's action. Now the reaction, usually the way you always want to think about it, is your main character. How are they reacting to it? That's like, you're going to have their little inhale and inhale, exhale. So here it's just a simple response. Yes, she said. Now we have another outside stimulus. So you always want to think about it like outside stimuluses stimulate the main character, and then you have the main character's response to that outside stimulus, what's happening outside of her. So in this case, it was Cloud, doing something and then saying something, and then she responds. And you always want to think about the different steps that can happen as a response. You have feelings and emotions, right, that happen, and this can be adrenaline rush, this can be pain, this can be, for example, it can be a ripping pain in the stomach or whatever it is. It can be adrenaline rush. It can be any other kind of feeling you can think of. And that usually takes place first, and then you'll have a physical reaction to that feeling. Maybe like it's a deep breath, or hyperventilating, or maybe it's twitching your hands or shaking, your hands shaking, whatever it is. And so you have that reaction, and then you have their physical action that they're going to take action and do something as a result of what happened. Like, Jack pulls the gun to his shoulder. And then after that, you usually want to share thoughts. Thoughts and speech is usually the last thing. But so you always want to think about that order of things that a character can respond with, and you always want to try to respond with them if it's appropriate. Here it wasn't appropriate to share any of the feelings that she's having or anything like that, so I didn't. A bunch of leaves ripped away from the tree and swirled in the sky. They formed the shape of 3 women. These are the nymphs. The fruit is ours. They don't actually say it, the fruit is ours, they said together. So that's the next, you can think of this as the next inhale. That's the external things that are happening to the main character. And sometimes you might have several external things happening, and then the main character responds. So maybe if there's a lot of characters there, maybe 3 of the characters are doing things and responding to each other, to whatever, and then you have the main character responding to what's happening. Now, Skyla responds, and this, we only need like 7 apples, Skyla said. You can have the rest. Now, obviously, I put the speech first because it seemed more, most logical, rather than saying how she felt. How did, I could have mentioned how their voices, and I might do this. See, this is a rough draft, so I haven't gone through all this yet. I haven't thought about all this. When you write your rough draft, you just want to get it down. But I do try to pay attention to this as much as possible, but I obviously didn't think about this when I was writing, but now I am. Before she responds, I could actually have her emotional response to how they sounded, that their voice kind of creeped her out, and I can kind of show that, or so anyway, yeah, I could do that, and let's see here. All right, I'm almost out of time, so please visit the master edit in the link there. Just check it out. It's worth going to the website and checking it out. I'm going to come back and talk more about this. I went ahead and decided to add this in here since I had the idea now. I just want to go ahead and get it out of the way, and I'll save it. I'll come back and talk more about this action-reaction, these MRUs, motivation reaction units, as Dwight calls them. But I don't think that works too well. It's kind of confusing. So I went ahead and decided to share her kind of an emotional reaction, and this was a physical reaction in a way. All right, come back for the next part.